Friends, sons, welcome back to the Being Sons podcast. We are going to be talking about sex for the next two podcasts. And it's a treat because I'm going to be having that conversation with my son, who is now 20, and with a very good friend of his and a good friend of mine, Jake Carter. They were high school buddies. They're both now moving into their second year in college. And so what we're going to do is take a look back on their story through middle school and high school, what I did well, what dads did well in helping prepare our sons, for the first sex talk. So it's kind of a humorous conversation to look back and learn from him what helped, what stuck, what was not helpful. And then in the second episode, what we're going to be talking about is an issue that they're dealing with, that every man deals with, and that's why wait until marriage? What's the benefit? What is it about the design that God created masculinity to have that benefits us by waiting? And so this is just a very candid set of conversations with some young men who are in the thick of it, and mixed in with my reflections and what I've learned and some stories that I've gathered over the years. This, I hope, is going to be a blessing to dads out there and to you young men who are looking at your masculinity and wondering, what is the best way for me to grow into this incredible, beautiful, masculine soul, image bearer here on earth, the one that God created you to be. So anyway, I hope you enjoy the next few conversations as I walk and talk a few miles with Jake Carter and with my son Baer along the tried and true road to being sons. All right, friends, so welcome back to the Being Sons podcast. I got a special treat here. I've got here in the makeshift studio, which is a card table that I had drug out from behind the refrigerator in the garage, and I had to peel the cobwebs off of it. I'm here with my son, Baer, and with his very good friend, also a good friend of mine, Jake Carter. And I've had the privilege of being able to hang out with these guys. We've done some camping in Big Bend together. We've had some incredible experiences, and Jake is a young man that it's just one of those men that you're drawn to very early. One of the guys that I was praying years really before they became good friends in high school. I was praying that the two of them would become good friends in high school. And I was praying that Jake would become the man that I knew he had it inside him to be. So it's been really fun to walk with the two of them. So anyway, before we get any further, I'll just let you guys kind of introduce yourself and just what's your age, what's your stage, just so people could kind of know, like, what's the environment in which you're living right now. So Baer, go ahead. My son.
Woof. Well, I'm Baer Garrison Heck, son of Jay Heck, the son of Being Sons.
Mm-hmm.
I turned 20 like a week ago, and about to enter my sophomore year of college at Dallas Baptist University, and I'm goodness, I've never had to do this before. I wish everyone would ask a question like this, and yet no, I don't. Gosh, I don't know.
So you're at Dallas Baptist. You're in college.
Yeah.
Going into your second year.
Yeah.
And what did you do this summer for work?
I built cabinets.
Yeah. Apprenticing.
Yeah.
It's awesome. What do you do at school?
What do you mean? What do I do? Like.
What do you do?
What do you do, Baer?
What are we paying for?
Yeah.
It should not take you a lot of time to answer that question.
Your dad's worried for you now,
Doing
Baer.
schoolwork and that's about it. I work at a coffee shop.
Yeah.
So
you become a coffee nerd.
Oh
my
my
big time.
Lord.
To say the least.
That's an understatement. Yeah.
That's great. Okay, so that's where you are. So how about you, Jake?
Yeah, my name is Jake Carter. I'm 20 years old. I have a twin sister, Maddie Carter, and I currently go to Texas A&M, and I'm going to be a sophomore this year.
Whoop.
Yeah, can't say that yet. Not upperclassmen.
That's right.
But yeah, I'm A&M, my second year. I'm in the Corps of Cadets in Outfit E1, the athletic company. Let's go Jocks. Let's see, this summer, I was really busy this summer, but my job, kind of owned my own little landscaping business, and I contracted out to an RV park. So I was busy all summer, traveling with family and friends, and hanging with good friends like Baer.
Yep. Great. Yes. So Jake's got his family's had a ranch that they've been making beautiful, not too far outside San Antonio.
Oh.
So it's been good for them to go and hang out. I got to go do that. And that's where you guys were last night. And hopefully you guys are fully loaded to have an engaged conversation about the topic. Why should we wait for marriage? What's the benefit? To try and help you have a healthy outlook on the situation. And then, Jake, we were having a burrito not too long ago at Freebirds, and just over the natural course of catching up and having conversations, we talked about, a particular person in your story that has really awakened, a lot of these questions. And so it came around to you asking questions, because like I've told you before, like I've told you both, that discipleship's really driven by the questions. So the Lord brings up the questions, you just pay attention to them, and then you go seek out the answers, right? Because that's what we're looking for. What's the good way? Jeremiah 6:16, you guys have heard me. What is Jeremiah 6:16, Baer?
There's an ancient path that's tried and true. Ask where the good way is, walk in it, and you'll find rest for your soul.
Right. Yeah. So stand at the crossroads. And you guys are at a crossroads in your life right now. You could call it college. You could call it, the transition between boyhood into manhood. So you're standing at the crossroads. You're looking around. You guys are getting an eyeful living in 2022 right now, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Stand at the crossroads, look around, ask where the good way is, and walk in it, and there you'll find rest for your soul. So that's the tension. That's what we're looking for, is how to find the path of peace and the path of joy in life. So wanted to ask you guys this question. I know you, Baer, had the sex talk.
How do you know that?
Because the sex talk actually happened about 3 feet away, where my office is now in the room next to the very bed that we had that conversation. So did you ever get the sex talk?
Did I get the sex talk? Yes and no.
Okay. Go ahead and tell us a little bit about the sex talk. What do you remember from it?
Oh, man.
I mean, my mom never said anything. And my dad, if I remember correctly, he just said, I know you know all about this. And he basically just said that the importance of waiting till marriage and just the importance of that. But I didn't get all the fluff I think most other kids get. And I think I also have older parents, so I think that was why. But yeah, and that was okay. I didn't need all the fluff because that was just all right.
I'm sure you got a lot of fluff just from being around people.
Yeah.
What about you, Baer? What do you remember?
Oh gosh. I remember I got the sex talk because I came home and I told Mom, Mom, some guy at school said that dick was a bad word. And I told him, no, that's a guy's name. And Mom went, okay. And told you, hey, you need to tell him. So I got the okay, this is what your thing is for. And girls have a thing too, which was a new category for me. Mm-hmm. And then this is how they work. And I was trying to relate it back to some animal book I'd read or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you told me the cuss words. And
that was a major focal point for me, is I wanted you to hear every bad word from me first to try and diminish their power.
Yep.
So I had to even think through them all.
I forgot all of it after 2 days, and then I remember a couple of years later going, wait, I've heard that word before. Oh, okay. And it actually took a few years for me to understand that's it was a weird experience, man.
Okay, so looking back, you guys had kind of an introduction. I imagine there's a lot of guys who wish they'd gotten more. I know there's young men who wish they'd gotten a lot less explanation from their parents, for sure. It's a scary, vulnerable thing for a parent to be inviting our sons and our daughters up into all of that, not knowing where they'd come from. I was really actually curious, Baer, like what you knew at that point, because kids are getting into porn
What grade was
so
that? Seventh
early.
grade?
That was 4th grade for
Oh,
me.
4th grade.
Yeah.
Dang, Baer.
Yeah. I mean, that's when I came home with a cuss word. I didn't know a dang thing
Yeah.
before that.
So, did you find it helpful? Like, did you walk away going, "Oh, that was..." Well, looking back now, do you feel like that was appropriate, the way that it was handled? Or if you were to give any counsel to any dads out there who are about to have that conversation, what would your counsel be?
I think it depends when you decide to tell him. For like example, Baer and I, like it wasn't till like middle school till I kind of realized what all of that was, and I think it was maybe 8th grade, 7th or 8th grade. My dad told me that, and then like he explained more of it in high school, of like the importance of waiting until marriage and stuff like that. But I would just say it just depends at what stage your son is at. I wouldn't give too much information if they're in elementary school like Baer over here. Like, they might get an earful too much.
Well, the tension for me that probably drove me to that is that you guys had gotten a laptop. I remember how mad I was that you guys were taken out of physical books and thrown onto a laptop with all that access.
Yeah.
And, of course, everybody's got phones, right? So as a dad now, as a parent today, I'm trying to learn how to operate in this new culture, and you can either wait too long to have that conversation, or you can try and get ahead of the game, and we're just trying to walk with God. So I guess 4th grade, if that was too early, I'm sorry. But what are your thoughts to dads out there?
I mean, I don't remember much about just my thoughts in that area. At that point, I wasn't thinking about that kind of thing at all.
Yeah.
And I had no exposure to it at all.
Yeah.
But I remember a few times that guys would say something. I'd be like, "What?" And they'd be like, "What? You don't know what that is?" And I was just really confused, and I don't know. I never really engaged in that conversation with them. Like, yeah, I know what sex is, and like, anyway, it was never some point of like acceptance for me, I guess. But when you did tell me, it went in one ear and right out the other one. It just didn't matter at that point to me. And yeah, I don't know if I actually necessarily learned it from you, oddly enough. Like, I forgot all the words, too.
Yeah, well, the point wasn't for you to remember the words so that you could add them to your normal vocabulary.
Right.
It was just, the thing is, there's a lot of boys who are, and girls getting exposed so early.
Yeah.
And the influence that culture, media, friends have over the young, impressionable mind, it's like, as a parent, you have to be on the offensive. And it's worse now even than it was then, for sure.
Oh, man.
For sure. So, Baer, you are at a Christian college.
Yeah.
And Jake, you are definitely not at a Christian college, but a conservative school. I went to A&M, whoop, and it was awesome. It was a conservative school, a lot of ranchers and military, and I loved that about it. But, different tensions where you are right now. You guys have got different stories, but both of you came up through a private Christian high school. And do you think that saved you from all of the negative sexual media influences that kids going to public school were exposed to?
Yes and no. I'll go back to the technology part. Like for me, the first technology I had was an iPad in 6th grade. And that was the first thing I had. And I didn't get a phone till 8th grade. And it was a flip phone, a little Go phone. That thing was indestructible. I could throw it and just fall into pieces and put it back together. And I didn't get an iPhone until freshman year in high school. And I think that was a big reason. And I know I always complain to my parents, everybody else has a phone, all of this, but looking back, I am grateful that I did not have that at my fingertips at that age, because you're just not mature enough to have that device with so much access to so many things. And but that's to say, I mean, I still was tempted in other areas. Like we had a home computer at my house that was like the first area of temptation that I failed at. Yeah, what do you think, Baer?
I'm right there. I didn't get it. I got a flip phone in, I think, 8th grade. And I got...
That you and your sister shared.
Yep. And then
Because they're 1 grade apart.
Yeah. And then I got an iPhone and a car on the same day. So...
And what did I tell you?
This is a big old day.
Yes,
this is a lot of
very big day.
responsibility.
Very big
yeah.
day.
But what
You can kill people and you can kill yourself now.
Yeah, I handed you both. And do you remember what I said to you?
I remember the impression. I don't remember exactly what you said.
Well, I made a distinction between them. I said, this one is like a 3,000-pound piece of metal that you can hurl at another human being and destroy them. And then this one's a cell phone. And the cell phone can do more damage than the car can.
Yeah.
And, yeah, that was a big, oh my gosh, that was a big day for me. We were eating at Jason's Deli and and then we went and got you the phone. Yeah.
It was driver's license, phone, car.
You took a big step toward manhood on that day.
Jeez.
So what are your thoughts on that? Because there was so much tension for, my wife, Heather, and I.
Yeah.
Because you guys shared, I don't even know that you guys were really hanging out too much together at that point. But
Not a bit. Not until junior year.
Yeah, not until high
you were
school.
with the jocks and you were with the
nerds.
The computer nerds. And I use that term affectionately. I love all those guys here. But so you were 15, probably?
When I got a cell phone?
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Freshman year, and then you were 16th birthday?
Yeah.
Or, yeah.
Right before sophomore year.
So your thoughts looking back on the decision to withhold the phone from you?
Thank God, and thank you. I've always attributed a lot of just the goodness of not having been exposed to a lot of that stuff to not having a phone. And I never really wanted one, I guess, if I remember correctly. I was kind of looking around and like, why are y'all on your phones all the time? This is horrible. And I never was bothering y'all for one. But
right.
I am so dang thankful.
You would tell me what your lunch table looked like.
Yeah. Everyone was just looking at their phones. Nobody was talking. There was no genuine relating at all. And it was really lonely and miserable in a way.
Yeah, it made you angry.
Yeah, I didn't want to
You
part
were
of
just
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But thankfully you weren't using that as a reason to ask us for a phone.
Right.
But even at home within our marriage there was a tension.
Yeah.
Because Mom, you were kind of on the outside.
Totally. Yeah.
You were not like the other kids, and there's the protective parent that wants to help you assimilate.
Yeah.
And one super easy way to do that is to get the whole network connected on Snapchat and all that other stuff at that age. And there was just something in my gut that just kept saying, no. Hopefully let his brain grow a little bit and let him observe what the world is like when everybody else is on their phones. Like, even if it's only 6 months or a year, but luckily we were able to prolong that until your 16th birthday. And in leading men's retreats, when I would hear the miseries of men with teenagers, almost every misery was centered around the cell phone and the addiction that kids had to it and the disharmony. It's like when the cell phone is handed over to the kid, lots of times there is this rift or a wall that immediately takes place in the home, and you basically lost your kid, you know.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it always happens that way, but would you guys have observed that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I would say just since we got our phones, I mean, the culture has changed significantly since then. It's just moving towards technology. Like, I mean, you just see kids at dinner on their phones. Just like, it's just a habit. Just go to your phone, go to your phone.
Like, it's all the way down.
And I look at it and I think it's just, you're blocking off a development stage that's very rooted and important in that child's life. Like, it's tearing apart the nuclear family. And, I mean, just having a normal conversation with someone else, some kids don't even know how to talk. Because everything they do, everything how they communicate to their friends, their family is through their phone. But, I mean, I would say that having a phone, if you give your phone at a younger age, is, well, I wouldn't personally, but if you do, like, there is ways to have restrictions and boundaries for your kid so that it's not a huge issue for them.
And I would want to say to the parents, because there's parents out there, I'm sure you're listening, you want to follow God, you want to move where the life is, and you know, you've already stepped over that, you know, that threshold, and you've given your kids phones, and you know, the key is just walking with God. We had a lot of uncomfortable, difficult conversations prior to the phone and after the phone, you know? So really it's just about being intentional. You have, as a parent, you have to be intentional. You have to engage in those conversations. And as a parent, it just felt really important to me that I have to be the one that offers some wisdom and vocabulary before anybody else does. And I also told you, you're going to hear a lot of stuff from a lot of people. They're stupid. They have no idea what they're talking about. Your friends have no idea what they're talking about. And did that prove to be true?
Yep.
Yeah. So we're not throwing anybody under the bus, just saying what we're looking for is the path to life. And wherever you find yourself as a listener, I just want you to have hope and courage. What we're talking about is how to, really what we're warming up for is the conversation about having this incredible gift of our masculinity, our sexuality, which is expressed in the image of God as males. How do we get the most out of that? How do we prevent ourselves from making mistakes? So that's why I wanted to come into this conversation, which you guys, you know, I was really thankful that you guys were willing to have this conversation. So what is your story with regard to like the tensions, the pressures? We've got private college, we've got public college over here. You've got your stories through high school. I know that you both have had relationships with girls. Like, what is it like dealing with the issue of your sexuality as a young man today?
You want to go first, Baer? There's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
Just take it a piece at a time.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, what? Like,
What's
chronological?
I'll just say what's the tension? What's the big question? What are the questions at the forefront of your mind right now?
For me, I'm wondering, like, I guess, what does it look like as it was designed to be, and how do I figure out how to do that and to prepare myself for that? I'm in an environment where it's not difficult at all to wait, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a given where I go. At least kind of in the public forefront of people's minds, I guess. There's not really a culture, at least in the people that I spend time with, of let's go, do whatever. It's like, I would actually say, we were talking about this last night. I was saying that it's kind of a topic that is just buried, that there's not freedom to talk about. Like, gosh, I think Mount Vigil talks about how the way that the church has handled sexuality as basically wait till marriage has become the equivalent of sex is bad, and it's so drilled into our minds that some people, like, they've done studies, and some girls have shown signs of sexual trauma without any sexual encounters. Like, it's so drilled into our minds that we can't even think about it, and we don't talk about it, that's for sure. And it's just this, like, tiptoe topic that's like the message really does feel like it's just not a good thing. And if it is, it's like this obligatory marital obligation almost, and it's like, it's kind of a Gnostic, have as little pleasure in this as possible because it might lead you into other things, or it's just
it even goes into desire is just bad,
right?
Yeah,
that's exactly it.
And if you were to kind of list the top 3 desires of the masculine soul, well, sex is going to fall in there in one of them. Yeah. So I would. You're a freshman. You have not yet had a serious relationship.
Sophomore.
You're a sophomore. Yes.
Yeah.
You just got out of your freshman year. So I would actually challenge your supposition that the pressure for sex is less in a Christian school. I mean, many of my friends were involved in Christian ministries where a biblical worldview of sex, an elevated biblical worldview of sex was something that they were really looking forward to, and they just couldn't wait. They didn't. And
Wow.
A third member of the family popped out really quickly, quicker than they anticipated.
Well, dang.
So, yeah. And this is another very interesting observation. Years ago, Wild at Heart came down to Texas, and they held a boot camp kind of out east of Houston. And me and my band of brothers drove out there. And the team and the intercessor team, they're always asking for advanced words about what's coming against this group of men. And clearly, being in the Bible Belt of Texas, there's a very, very pernicious religious spirit. And something that was really illuminating was that the religious spirit and the spirits of sexuality, the spirit of adultery and promiscuity and lust and all of that, like, they couldn't believe it. They said this is the nastiest spiritual environment we've ever hosted a boot camp in. And there's something about the religious spirit that first comes in and tries to get a person as an act of acceptance and as their rescue mechanism to make it through life. Like, I'm going to use religion, I'm going to use Christianity, and that's going to help me come up with my identity. All the stuff that's going on, the natural desires, we stuff it down inside, and then it manifests through pornography. I remember, some of you listening to this podcast will no doubt remember this, but one of the big men in Christian men's ministry years ago held a big conference for youth pastors, from, I believe it was around the country, but it was a hotel filled with youth pastors. And at the end of the conference, the person at the lobby told the guy, told the guy who'd hosted this whole thing that they had never had more hits, had never had more people watching pornography in their hotel rooms ever in the history of the hotel.
Really?
Yes.
Dang.
And I believe that.
Yeah,
I really, really do. So if you've got a need to stuff for fear of not being accepted, if you have a need to look like the clean boy and to make it through life, then you're going to stuff that, and it's going to come out in some way that is going to destroy your soul. So I know I had experience with that growing up. I remember the very first time I saw a pornographic magazine. It was my friend Will, 4 or 5 blocks away, and he had a magazine that was stuffed underneath an air conditioner across the street, and he could keep it there, and I remember him showing it to me for the first time. That was my first exposure. I don't remember the pictures, but I do remember the feeling that I got. And then there was another exposure later on. There was actually, I had kind of a friend, an acquaintance, and I went to go hang out with them when I was in high school, probably my freshman year before I was driving. And it was a brother and a sister, and the mother went and rented Rated X movies for us to watch, like with her daughter on the couch.
Oh my gosh.
And there was this hunger, I was just thirsty for life and wondering, what are my parents keeping from me? And I think that's a part of being your age, is that you're very hungry and you're very thirsty. You want to know what the life is. And that's super normal, because that's what God's put in us. So, okay, so that's part of your tension there, Baer, right now, and feel free to add more to that. But how about you, Jake? What's the story? What's the tension? What's the question for you?
Just like relating to that question?
Yeah, just what are the tensions around having expressing your masculinity in a healthy versus unhealthy way in 2022?
Yeah, in 2022. Well, I'll first go back to high school, and growing up in a Christian school. I think the whole sex and all of that, it was masked going there compared to going to a public school, and you're almost in a
Or lessened.
Yeah, good way to put it. And you're almost in a bubble almost, and some kids know one another's and whatnot, but you kind of just live in a bubble. And with that said, for the parents that shelter their kids too much in that area, I know a friend who his parents wouldn't let him do anything, wouldn't let him go out, this and that, and that was a real danger, because especially going to college and then coming from a bubble, it's oh my gosh,
Yeah.
look at everything, all the freedom I have, my parents have sheltered me from. And 9 times out of 10, kids go off the rails. Now, this kid didn't, thankfully. So anyway, that was just a side thought.
Mm-hmm.
But
We know of at least one girl or a couple that have totally gone off the rails, though.
oh yeah, but at the same time, you don't want your kid to get. I know kids who their parents give them anything they want, and they think that's a way of loving them and showing their expression to them.
Mm-hmm.
But at its core, it's a very bad danger.
Mm.
And, they go off the rails too. So, there's a good in-between in regard to that. I think you and I, Baer, I was grateful for my parents, where they set boundaries, but they also gave me more freedom slowly as I aged, to experience more and more, but at the same time not going berserk.
Yeah. Yeah. Pa did a really good job at basically saying, okay, or creating a space where I knew that I was free to ask questions, and then
Right.
actually answering them instead of going how dare you ask that, or yeah, go do whatever the frick you want.
Yeah.
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 Mm-hmm. So what have you guys done? Oh, well, let me just ask you first. Have you ever experienced, at your age, a sexual desire or urge?
Absolutely.
No.
Okay.
If I hadn't, I'd be probably kind of worried.
So
Absolutely.
okay. So when would you just say, looking back, when did you feel like that started? When were your eyes opened?
Ooh, my eyes were opened, as I said earlier, like we had a home computer, right? And it was in, I think, middle school, maybe 7th grade or 6th grade, I don't remember. And I didn't know anything, right? But I was on a club soccer team with a bunch of public school kids. And they would always tease me because I didn't know anything. And I slowly became more aware of everything through that group. So I remember I would go home, and there was a home computer. I would look up like naked women or like girls in bikinis or something. And it was like in broad daylight. I mean, my parents could walk in and see it, but I was like, very secretive of it. And I would clear the history and all of that, right?
Yeah.
And I remember one day, my dad came into my room, and he was like, "Son, did you look up this?" And my heart just dropped. I was like, "Oh no, I've been caught. I'm gonna be disowned." And I was like, "No, it was Maddie." Blaming on everybody myself. But I remember my dad just sitting me down outside and just talking through just masculine journey and dealing with that and the sin nature coming from that.
Was that good?
It was good. And also put fear into me, I will tell you. Because I did not want to disappoint my dad. Because I respected my dad a lot. And that coming from him was like, "Okay, Dad, I hear you. Thank you. Now I'll go and, I'll be tested."
I think a lot of young men, I didn't get exposed because I was evil. I was just curious.
Yeah, curiosity.
You're just curious.
Absolutely.
Like, what does that look like?
Yeah.
And nowadays, you can pretty much type up anything in Google. Like, you could say, "I want a picture of circles or wheels." And if you scroll far enough down, somebody has figured out a way to expose you.
Yeah.
Right? I was running not too long ago at the Frisbee golf course, not far from here. And there was a piece of paper lying on the ground. One piece of paper. It was kind of wadded up. I picked it up. It was a piece of pornography. It's just like hunting you down, which is what I told you. I was like, Baer, well, do you remember what I used to say to you about the phone?
Like that it's seeking me out.
Right.
And
it's not.
You basically likened it to like an enemy that was actively trying to destroy me.
Right. Like, I'm not concerned about you going and looking for it. I know that it's searching for you. Yeah. It's literally looking for a way to expose you through any search engine, through all images, through everything. Yeah. And that's something that, I think even parents are really naive to, especially, if we're not looking, we have no idea
These
how
days, yes.
easy accessible it is.
Very easy.
Yeah. Okay, so curiosity is, that natural curiosity, but then we're getting into full-born desire, sexual desire. And that is like, it touches something in the masculine soul that nothing else has touched before. Like, nothing else even feels like it can compare to that level of curiosity. I remember just feeling it. The first time I got like an erection was like watching TV, and it was this, it was a sitcom. It was a sitcom about kind of a cop or detective show, and one of the cops had to dress up or pretend to be like a male stripper or something like that. Obviously it didn't show anything. By today's standards, it would have been a rated G movie, but it was just the arousal that was its way back in 1978 of already going and grooming the audience. I remember like sitting there with like an erection while I'm watching This is before I had even had my very first, like emission or anything like that. I'm like, what is going on? And my mom's right there. And I just, you gotta keep your knees folded up. Right. And I thought, what is this? And I felt, wow, I have never felt anything like this before. I can feel the tingles from the tip top of my head down to my feet. Whatever it is that's connected to this, it's from the top to the bottom. And I also felt dirty.
Yeah.
I felt like I should not be feeling this. It was many, many years before I ended up having that discussion with my dad. But what awakened that in you guys?
Oof. Well, I remember kind of my first exposure, I think. I just remember spending a ton of time on computers and just like a ton of time. And I ended up like whatever playing games and I ended up talking to people online and stuff, and literally just spending time. It just kind of naturally came up and stuff. And then my curiosity fueled kind of continuing to look that out, but I felt dirty. So I hid all of that stuff, which was a hell of a couple of years. I know for me and for y'all, because I just did nothing but hide. But
and what did that look like to hide?
For me?
Yeah.
Like, gosh, I mean, I was a tech savvy kid, so I could hide. I could do whatever the heck I wanted to.
Yeah.
I mean, I could hide stuff. I could whatever, spread stuff out. I could, mess with, like, you had software on my stuff, and I figured out how to disable it. And I'd come home every day from school, and I basically did nothing except be in my room with the door locked. And like sometimes I was watching stuff, and then sometimes I was like playing Pokemon because that was also something that was opposed. But I basically just stopped talking to y'all about anything. And I had a lot of anger, but a lot of shame. Like the anger came from the shame, I think. But I was just kind of in that cycle of, because of that, school wasn't like attractive. Because school wasn't attractive, that went down. So then it was like, where do I go for something that is good? And I just kept coming back to all that crap.
So your grades were affected.
Down the tank.
Yeah, down the tank. And
for the first time ever.
Right, because you're a smart kid. You got great grades without much effort.
Yeah.
But the school required that you guys use a tablet for everything.
Yeah.
Right? So that's one huge strike. And as a parent, we're trying to figure out, what do we do? We're having conversations with the principal and like, why are we doing this? Just because the world is doing this, why are we going to computers? So as a parent, I had no idea how to parent that expectation from the school. Plus, we were trying to give you, some space to grow. Plus, you were on the cybersecurity team, right? So your passion at that time was being on computers and figuring out how to basically stop bad guys by learning how to be a bad guy.
Yeah.
In the ways that they would penetrate stuff. So as a parent, we're going, we have absolutely no control over the situation whatsoever, right? The only thing that we could have done was to sit you in the living room and turn you around so that the screen was always facing us. But to you, that would have just communicated to you, like you were saying, Jake, like, I don't trust you. Yeah. So we had to...
I mean, there was basically that. Like, I remember for a while, there was that, and I still managed to hide.
Right.
Totally.
Right. And it's absolutely appropriate for a parent to hover over young boys and manage everything. As much as we hate it, as much as you hate it.
Absolutely.
Like,
Absolutely.
Is a father naive? Are a father and a mother naive if they just give you a computer or a phone and have a good conversation with you and then say, I trust you, and then they don't manage it?
Being polite, that's not going to do a damn thing.
Yeah, I mean, if you think, starting like, even like middle school, if you think that your kid is not the recipient of sexual activity or pornography, you're absolutely wrong. I do not know one guy who has not struggled with pornography.
Yeah.
Not one.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's crazy. I mean, especially in high school, it gets a lot worse, but
Even with some of the best parents.
and some kids you would never think.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're the one who struggle with the most.
Yeah.
So what's the solution then? Do you kill the desire? Or do you do something different with it? Like,
Direct it in the right place.
how have you guys, and how are you handling that desire?
I think it's very important to address the issue. Like Baer was saying, to be naive about it is just as bad. Because if you don't address the issue, then it just manifests. But once you address the issue, it's like, okay, this is the issue, but how am I going to deal with it? And I think so many guys, they just kind of tuck it away, and it's just something that doesn't affect the rest of their life, but it's like another image of themselves that they don't want to share with anyone else. For example, I mean, Baer and I remember it was junior year retreat.
Yep.
And I remember I was sitting with Lex and Andrew and my girlfriend at the time and someone else, and I was mad at them for something. They were on my nerves. And
my buddies were on my nerves as well.
yeah, and like, Baer and I were friends, but we weren't really good friends.
We kind of had like a mutual respect. Like,
Yes.
you're a good guy.
And I mean, because we had different interests.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's,
Yeah.
but something in me told me to go over there and sit with Baer. And I remember I went over there.
I went to sit by myself.
Yes.
I wanted to be by myself.
Yes.
I was sitting alone, and I was just like, okay, this is gonna be great.
Yeah, and I came and sat with Baer, and then
Yep.
Andrew and Lex followed me.
Yep.
Eventually.
Yep.
And after the worship and all of that, I remember it was the dance party. Remember that?
No.
Yeah. Okay. It was okay. Yeah, it was okay.
Okay.
But I don't know how we got, but it was like we just wanted to talk. I was like, so we went over there.
What I remember is we were basically sitting there, like the four of us, and we were like, I was talking to you, like, oh, I'm so glad you're here. And you were like, yeah, I felt like God told me to come over here.
Yeah.
And then Lex just kind of tagged along.
And then Andrew came over too.
Andrew was like, well, I want to be with you all. So we ended up all sitting over on, like,
that
by
little
some
patio.
chairs away from everybody.
Yeah, and we just
like,
dove into
what's
conversation.
Yeah, we were like, what's God doing here? And correct me if I'm wrong. Was I the one that was like, well, I struggle with porn, and y'all were like, me too, and we were like, that was like mind blowing.
So
Yeah.
how
For all of us.
significant was that for
Yeah, okay,
you
so
guys
where I'm going-
in your life relationship here?
I mean, where I'm going with that
Sorry.
is just seeing that other guys are struggling with the same issue you struggle with from a day-to-day basis. I was like, it was like almost a sense of relief in a way. I was like, wow, like this is very real. But what the fruit from that led into a group of young men who kept each other accountable. And I think that is the biggest way to fight the battle with pornography and any sexual tension is accountability. With not other girls, not women, not your mom. With, I mean, it's the truth.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, just with guys your age who are going the same thing and keeping each other accountable, and we have kept that group going till this day.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what helped me the most. Now, with that to say, like a father can't really enforce that upon their son. That is something that their son has to go out and find himself. But that's not easy to find.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Because you guys had both been dealing with it for a while before,
yes.
right? Like, I mean, a year or 2 or 3
Yeah.
or 4?
Oh yeah, like 4 or 5 years.
Couple for me.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, since middle school. Yeah. I mean, wouldn't you agree, Baer?
Yeah, I mean, that is one of the largest, like, monuments of my life at this point. Was I'd never seen God do something that clearly.
Yeah, it felt powerful.
I'd been praying for a group of good guys for years.
Ooh,
at that point.
That's a good point right there. Okay, you've been praying, yeah.
I had, well, I'd gotten fed up with the guys that I was around. So
Right.
this is helpful. Got into middle school, and I was only hanging out with the I guess like the computer nerds, the guys that were interested in, I mean, like, they're what you would think of, I guess. And in spending time with them, I actually got sheltered from a lot of the comparison with other kids, because I had people to spend time with, and I had people to talk to and to sit with at lunch and stuff, and that was basically all I needed. So, we didn't talk about anything real, but I had people, and that lasted throughout middle school, and I had similar interests, but once I was getting into junior year, they were starting to delve into some of that stuff. So, like, I didn't see drugs, I didn't see alcohol, I didn't see sex with them. By that point, I just wanted something more real. Like, God, are there any other guys that are pursuing God? Because they weren't really.
Yeah.
And, like, God went, like, hey, here's some guys that are struggling with the same stuff, so it takes away the self-isolation, and then it's like, oh my God, there's other people that listen to God here?
Right.
That was huge. Yeah, and then we all got together, and it was like, that was one of the most comforting things, was literally just having guys to talk to that were being honest to some degree.
Yeah, and vulnerable.
Yeah.
Because that's not easy to talk about.
No, but yeah, that was really helpful. The accountability was good. I mean,
because you didn't want to let each other down.
Right.
And what'd you say?
It was really good. Some of us are still having issues.
Yeah, I mean, it's been how many years since then, but I mean, it's gone up and down.
Yeah.
But I would say overall.
Yeah.
And I mean, right now we are readdressing the issue again.
We're trying to kind of restart that battle.
Yeah, it's hard being in college. Everyone's at different schools. So we've kind of revisited that and said, we still struggle with it. I mean, it doesn't just go away. I'm right.
Yeah.
It doesn't just go away, especially as you get older.
Well, here's the question, and actually what we're going to do is we're going to end part 1 here, and then we're going to have a second part. We're going to come back and kind of develop this conversation. So, what you guys have just pointed out is that the battle is real, the desire's there. There's going to be influences from culture and from friends that are going to meet every young boy in that place of desire, and that the battle is really what we do with it, and that one of the great rescues for you early in your story, which was really two-pronged from what I'm hearing, and I can attest for myself as well. One is just to realize I'm not alone in this. So the sting and the shame and the feeling that, oh no, I'm hosed, like I'm the only person that's dealt with this. God must really, really hate me.
Yeah.
So there's that and the relief. But the second thing is that it was that shame and vulnerability that helped you discover one of the things that for every man we need as much as almost anything else, and that's a band of brothers.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's the name of our group chat.
Which very few men have.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I didn't get one until I was, in my 40s.
Yeah.
Right? And so you guys have done a really good job of pursuing one another and hanging out with one another, and you'll develop other bands of brothers over the years, but that was great. So so that's part of the strategy is finding a group of guys that you can be vulnerable with. And would it help? Does it have to be 5 guys, or would it have been beneficial if it was even only one?
Even if it's only one.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't.
And it started out as 4 and we tacked on 2 more guys gradually.
Yeah, we did.
Okay. So we're going to go ahead and pause this conversation. We'll pick it back up at the next podcast. Jake and Baer, glad you're here, and we'll continue this conversation a little bit later. Thanks for joining Jake and Baer and I as we walk and talk about what to do with these masculine desires that God's put in us. So anyway, we're glad you're here on the tried and true road to being sons. Thanks so much for joining us for this first part in a 2-part conversation with Baer and with Jake. These are the sex talks. At least we're laying a little bit of groundwork for what that talk could look like with your son when he's younger, and what we're going to be moving into now. Next podcast is why wait? I mean, everybody seems to be having sex. Why wait? Why be different? There's a lot of great reasons to do that. So if you're a father, or if you are a young son who is looking for answers to the ancient questions, the ones that are designed by God and placed in your heart to help make you wise, then join us again next week. I want to remind you that we are a crowd-funded ministry, 100%. So we are so grateful to those of you who listen and in any way provide support for us. We look forward to talking with you on the next episode. All right, till then.